All right, picture this. You're getting ready for a big trip. You're stoked about new adventures and all that. But your old backpack, yeah, it's seen better days.
Time for an upgrade.
Right. You want something that's going to last, something with a bit of style. But also, let's be real, you care about the planet.
Finding gear that's both stylish and ethical, that's the holy grail for a lot of people these days.
Totally. And that's where Cora Spink jumps in, claiming they've cracked the code. Sustainable, ethical, A&D profitable bags. Are they the real deal? Or just masters of greenwashing? We've got a whole stack of their stuff here. Website, marketing materials, even an independent report on their waterproofing tech. Ready to dive in.
Let's do it. Always up for a good mystery, especially when it involves companies making big promises. Lots of eco-friendly labels thrown around these days.
No kidding. So, Cora Spink, their story is interesting right off the bat. Founded in 2019, smack dab in the middle of Brexit. Talk about bold.
Gutsy move for sure.
Yeah.
And they're based right here in the UK, but get this, their workshop is in India.
Which, let's be honest, raises some eyebrows right away, right?
The big one, for sure. Immediately makes you think about labor practices, wages, the whole shebang. To their credit, they don't shy away from it.
Yeah.
They address it head on their website.
Yeah, they're not exactly hiding it. And this isn't some tiny operation either. Over 100 stores across the UK, they're in shops internationally, their online stores booming. Clearly, people are buying what they're selling.
They've had some pretty impressive growth, that's for sure. But that's also where things can get tricky. Scaling up that fast. Maintaining your ethical commitments when you're trying to meet those kinds of demands, that's the real test.
For sure. It's one thing to be ethical when you're small and everything's easy to control, but when you're growing that fast. Anyway, let's get into it. They talk a lot about their materials recycled and biodegradable canvas, 100% vegan, no virgin plastic. Actually, they're totally ditching recycled plastic altogether. They say it just keeps the plastic problem going.
Interesting. That's a pretty bold stance. Most companies seem perfectly happy to just slap a recycled label on things and call it a day.
Right. So they're claiming they're thinking about the whole life cycle of their products, which is a good sign. They even get specific about the recycled content, 40% for the outer canvas, over 90% for the lining. Of course, the sourcing of all this needs a closer look, certifications, all that.
Absolutely. The devil's in the details, as they say. But let's move on to how these bags are actually made. They own the factory in India, right?
They do. Which, again, could be a good thing. Or maybe not. They say it allows them to ensure fair wages, safe conditions.
Which would be fantastic, but how can you be sure? We're talking about a whole other continent, different culture, legal system. It's tough.
And it's not like we can just pop over for a quick factory tour, so how do we get past the marketing and figure out what's really going on?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's exactly why we're here. Let's dig into some more of this information and see if we can get a clearer picture.
So we're trying to see past the marketing here, right? And figure out if those good intentions actually translate into action on the ground, thousands of miles away.
Easier said than done, for sure. This is one of those areas where transparency is absolutely crucial.
And they're saying they're aiming for B Corp status, which you were saying is a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, B Corp is huge. To get that certification, they really put companies through the ringer. Social and environmental performance, accountability, transparency, the whole 9 yards. It's not easy.
So if a company's even trying to get B Corp certified, that says something.
It definitely means something. It tells me they're at least willing to open themselves up to that level of scrutiny, which a lot of companies just aren't. But even with B Corp, you got to look deeper.
Right, because a company can say they're doing all the right things, but how do we know for sure?
Exactly. Independent audits of their supply chain, for example. That's something we'd want to look for. And ideally, some first-hand accounts from people who've actually worked in their factory.
Makes sense. It's like, you're not going to trust a restaurant just based on their online menu, right? You want to see what other diners are saying, people who've actually eaten there.
Perfect analogy. And speaking of looking beyond the menu, this is where things get even more interesting with Cora Spink. They're developing a plant-based waterproofing treatment.
Hold on, really? I thought you said those PFAs, the chemicals used in waterproofing, were like indestructible.
Pretty much. They're everywhere, and they last forever. It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
But Cora Spink, they're not just trying to make eco-friendly backpacks. They're trying to tackle this whole PFA thing head on.
Wow. So instead of just playing it safe, they're aiming for a complete game changer. That's pretty ambitious, to say the least.
It is. And it's not just some pie-in-the-sky idea either. They've actually partnered with Eurofins Scientific for testing, which is a big deal in the world of scientific validation.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is, at least on the research and development side. But all this innovation, that takes cash, right?
Yeah. Big time. And that's where things get interesting for anyone listening who might be thinking about investing. Cora Spink is currently seeking £250,000 in funding.
$250,000. What are they planning to do with all that cash?
They've got some pretty big plans. Scaling up production, obviously, expanding globally, reaching new markets. Oh, and they're also looking to launch some entirely new product lines.
Like, what else could they possibly... Wait, don't tell me. Let me guess. Shoes.
Close. Clothing. They're going for the whole sustainable fashion shebang.
Wow, talk about aiming high. But going back to those ethical commitments we were talking about, how do those hold up when you're talking about growth on that scale?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing to run an ethical business when you're small, but when you start talking about global expansion, massive production increases, keeping those values front and center, that's a whole other ballgame.
And for the average person, someone who's just looking for, I don't know, a cool backpack that doesn't cost the earth, what should they be thinking about? What are the red flags, the green flags, all that? How do you cut through all the noise?
That is the question, isn't it? Let's break it down a bit, shall we?
So, red flags, green flags. How can we tell if Cora Spink is the real deal or just really good at marketing?
Well, greenwashing is a real art form these days, isn't it? You've got to hand it to them. They're good at telling a compelling story.
Right.
But for me, it always comes back to transparency.
Okay, so what does that look like in action?
First off, are they willing to be completely open about their supply chain? Are they publishing their factory audits?
Because anyone can make claims, but backing it up with actual evidence, that's key.
Exactly. And it can't just be, oh, trust us, everything's great. I want to see the nitty-gritty details, independent verification, all that, and worker testimonials. That's something I always look for.
So going beyond the curated company website and actually finding out what the workers on the ground have to say about their experiences?
Precisely. They talk a big game about happiness being a core value.
Yeah, which is a nice sentiment and all.
Sure, but what does that actually mean in practice? Free yoga classes, beanbag chairs in the break room.
Because that's not going to cut it if they're working people to the bone and paying them pennies.
Yeah, exactly. So look beyond those feel-good marketing slogans and see if their actions match their words. Are they paying a living wage? Do their employees have opportunities for growth and development? These are things you can actually measure.
It's all about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
100%. And that goes for us as consumers, too. We've got to be willing to ask those tough questions, do our research, and not just buy into a brand because it makes us feel good.
It's like you were saying earlier, every purchase is a vote.
Exactly. And those votes add up. We've got the power to shape the market with our choices. So to wrap this up, is Cora Spink the real deal when it comes to ethical, sustainable production? They're definitely doing a lot of things right, but like any growing company, they've got their work cut out for them.
So for everyone listening, it's a keep an eye on them situation. See how they navigate these growing pains and make your own informed decision.
Because at the end of the day, it's your money, your values, your choice. And here's a final thought for you to chew on. Cora Spink talk a lot about happiness, right? The happiness of their customers, their workers, even the planet. But is it actually possible to create that kind of utopia in our current economic system?
It's a big question, isn't it? And it goes way beyond just backpacks. It's about what kind of world we want to live in, what we truly value, and the trade-offs we're willing to make.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So keep asking those tough questions, keep digging deeper, and keep making those choices count.
And that, my friends, wraps up our deep dive into Cora Spink. Until next time, happy exploring, and remember, every choice makes a difference.